Let's start things off with U.S. President Donald Trump's first stop in his Asia tour. Before heading to South Korea on Tuesday morning, he sat down with his Japanese counterpart, Shinzo Abe. The duo saw eye to eye on North Korea's nuclear issue. 𝐉𝐚𝐩𝐻 has our top story.
At a joint news conference in Tokyo on Monday, U.S. President Donald Trump and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe reaffirmed their policies towards North Korea.
The regime continued development of its unlawful weapons programs, including its illegal nuclear tests and outrageous launches of ballistic missiles directly over Japanese territory, are a threat to the civilized world and international peace and stability. We will not stand for that. The era of strategic patience is over.
Japanese Prime Minister Abe said North Korea had dominated their talks and that he and President Trump were both completely on the same page. Abe reiterated that now is not the time for dialogue but time to maximize pressure on North Korea, as in Japan's new sanctions that will freeze the assets of 35 North Korean groups and individuals. When President Trump arrives in South Korea on Tuesday, he will likely be looking to strengthen Washington's alliance with Seoul and reaffirm their joint push to maximize pressure on North Korea over its nuclear and missile programs. President Moon Jae-in still favors dialogue as the way to defuse nuclear tensions on the peninsula and rules out any military options against Pyongyang. Renegotiating the bilateral free trade agreement with Seoul and Washington will likely be on the agenda, as Trump has criticized the deal as the cause of the U.S. trade deficit with South Korea. 𝐉𝐚𝐩𝐻, 아리랑 뉴스.
President Trump has been briefed on this shooting here in Tokyo. He will be leaving his hotel shortly to meet with business leaders and U.S. Embassy staff on this second day on his nearly two-week trip to Asia. The president spent his first day here with Japan's Prime Minister, where the two hit the links. They had dinner while discussing everything from North Korea to trade. Chief White House correspondent John Roberts has been traveling with the president, joins us live with the latest, and obviously this shooting takes precedent now.
Yeah, it's the sort of thing that's knocking everything off of the headlines at this point in time. And we're told, Brett, that the president was up early, and clearly he was because we saw him on Twitter monitoring the developments here in this tragic shooting. He was briefed several times, according to Sarah Huckabee Sanders, the press secretary, about this. He also spoke with Texas Governor Greg Abbott, who, as Brian Yettis pointed out, is on his way down to the scene there. I expect that they're probably holding that press conference until the governor arrives. The president taking to Twitter this morning to say, quote, "May God be with the people of Sutherland Springs, Texas. The FBI and law enforcement are on the scene. I am monitoring the situation from Japan." Clearly, this is going to weigh heavily on the president as he begins day 2 of his trip to Asia.
Heading to dinner with the Japanese Prime Minister, President Trump predicted it will be a busy Monday in Japan, a narrow amount of time to tackle some big issues.
We are in the midst of having very major discussions on many subjects, including North Korea and trade and other things, and we're doing very well.
Trade and North Korea will dominate the president's trip to Asia. At his first stop in Japan, the Yokota Air Force Base west of Tokyo,
At ease. At ease. Just sit there.
President Trump praised the strength of American and Japanese forces, sending an implicit warning to North Korean leaders.
No one, no dictator, no regime, and no nation should underestimate ever American resolve. Every once in a while in the past, they underestimated us. It was not pleasant for them, was it? It was not pleasant.
As an exclamation point, the president touted America's success driving ISIS from its headquarters in Raqqa, drawing wild applause.
And we've dealt ISIS one brutal defeat after another, and it's about time.
So far on this trip, the president's tone toward North Korea has been measured, a departure from many of his past statements, and one Democratic leaders hope continues.
I like to think that we would exhaust every diplomatic remedy because we're poking a stick in the eye of a mad dog. with some of what we're saying.
In addition to talks with Shinzo Abe, Korea's Moon Jae-in, and Xi Jinping of China, President Trump hopes to enlist more help from Russia in dealing with North Korea, announcing he will likely meet with Vladimir Putin at the APEC conference in Vietnam this week. The other burr under the president's saddle, the trade deficit the U.S. is running with all 5 nations he'll visit.
We will seek new opportunities for cooperation and commerce, and we will partner with friends and allies to pursue a free and open Indo-Pacific region. We will seek free, fair, and reciprocal trade.
President Trump's trip will be the longest presidential trip to East Asia since President George H.W. Bush a quarter of a century ago. As the president was leaving, Bush took aim at him in an upcoming book, saying, quote, "I don't know much about him, but I know he's a blowhard, and I'm not too excited about him being a leader." George W. Bush also weighed in, saying, quote, "I'm worried that I will be the last Republican president." Speaking with the travel pool aboard Air Force One, President Trump showed rare restraint, refusing to hit back against the attacks, telling reporters, quote, "I don't need headlines. I don't want to make their move successful."
The president does have a very busy day here in Tokyo. In addition to that speech that he's going to give to U.S. and Japanese business leaders who make a courtesy call on the emperor and empress, he's got a bilateral meeting with Shinzo Abe in which they'll talk about trade and security in the North Korea problem. Then he meets with the families of Japanese citizens who were abducted by North Korea. And then he tops it all off with a press conference at about midnight Eastern time. But, Brett, I think it's safe to say that this shooting in Texas is going to be top of mind as well for the president.
Yeah, I mean, when you're president, events happen and you have to react to them. And obviously he's reacting to this. Hard to overstate, though, John, the importance of this trip over the 12 days.
It's exceedingly important because what the president needs to do is he needs to build support to try to get North Korea to pull back on its nuclear program. The president has said the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula is his ultimate goal. But Kim Jong-un, I'm told by many people in the know, sees nuclear weapons as his only means of his regime's survival. So it's going to take some very difficult negotiations to try to get him to back off.
All right, John, thank you.
Trump says Japan will shoot North Korean missiles out of the sky in war rhetoric. President Donald Trump has branded North Korea a menace and backed Japan to shoot any North Korean missiles out of the sky as he joined his counterpart Shinzo Abe in Tokyo on Monday. Speaking after a summit with Abe during the first leg of his 12-day tour to Asia, Trump reiterated his belief that the era of strategic patience with North Korea was over. He added that the two countries were working to counter the dangerous aggressions of the North Korean regime, which has fired 2 rockets over Japan this year and repeatedly threatened the U.S. territory of Guam. The U.S. president described Pyongyang's nuclear and missile programs as a threat to the civilized world and to international peace and stability, and after agreeing to sell U.S. military equipment to Tokyo, Trump believes Japan is now ready to shoot any projectiles out of the sky. After Trump's national security advisor faced questions about the president's rhetoric, the Republican tycoon vowed not to mince his words when it came to the North Korea crisis. He said, "Some people said that my rhetoric is very strong. But look what's happened with very weak rhetoric over the last 25 years. Look where we are right now." Ahead of Trump's departure last week, H.R. McMaster said the U.S. president is unlikely to tone down his rhetoric during his Asia tour, saying the rising tensions are a result of North Korea's threats and missile tests, not Trump's words. McMaster told reporters, "I don't think the president really modulates his language. Have you noticed him do that? I mean, he's been very clear about it. I've been aware of the discussions about, hey, is this inflammatory? And what's inflammatory is the North Korean regime and what they're doing to threaten the world. The president will use whatever language he wants to use obviously, and what the president has done is clarified in all of his discussions. His statements on North Korea are determination to ensure that North Korea is unable to threaten our allies and our partners, and certainly the United States. I think there would be a grave danger if that regime didn't understand our resolve, the president's resolve to counter North Korean aggression. And the president's made it very clear. Trump also reiterated his promise that the U.S. is 100% behind Japan and South Korea as he prepares to travel to other parts of the region over the coming days. In response, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Hua Chunying said the North Korean situation was already extremely complex, sensitive and weak. She said, "We hope that under the present circumstances, all sides' words and actions can help reduce tensions and re-establish mutual trust and getting the North Korean nuclear issue back on the correct track of dialogue and negotiations." The news comes after Russia admitted Washington and Moscow are not working together on the North Korea crisis amid fears the increasing tensions could result in nuclear war. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov revealed increasingly hostile ties between the two superpowers mean they are yet to agree on a solution to the ongoing North Korea crisis. He said, "There is no cooperation so far. Only periodic exchanges of views." While the Trump administration refuses to take the option of military intervention in North Korea off the table, Russia and China are adamant that diplomacy is the only way to relieve the tensions on the Korean peninsula.